Hey YouTube, Crazy Jeep Man here. We find ourselves outside now at the 08 JKU Sahara. In an earlier video, I stated that the best way to install these inner fenders is actually already attached loosely in the middle. I've decided that the best way to actually install them is going to be to actually separate them, the front, rear part of the inner fender for the front, and actually install the rear part of the inner fender first and then attach the front side to that. So let's get started and let's see how we can get this thing done. Okay, first thing is first. You want to take out the stock inner fender and preferably remove your stock fender and disregard those. But do not, I repeat, do not throw away or disregard the 4 bolts that go on the inner fender when you pull them out. They go one here, one here, one here, one here. They're the 10mm bolts that you remove whenever you remove your inner fender. You want to keep those because you have to have those to reinstall the Prestige inner fenders. Hey YouTube, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to install the rear section of the front inner fender. To begin with, we'll get our front rear inner and we're going to slide it back. Remember, there's an anchor bolt right here that goes towards the firewall. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold it up, slide it in, and then it goes up against the firewall, and then we're going to place, not tighten up, but we're going to place a 10mm bolt in the factory hole here. All this is for is to hold it in place while we continue doing what we're supposed to be doing with the anchor bolt. So we'll just get that up, get it snug, just close to finger tight. Then we're going to take our 7/64 and we're going to begin tightening up the Allen wrench hole, the anchor bolt. Alright guys, so now we've got our rear section put in of the front inner fender. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move forward and complete the install by installing the front section that we have. To do so, you want to take the inner fender front section and basically you want to bring it in and put your bolts in to line everything up. We're not looking at trying to get it snug right now. We're just gonna get it where it's in place, and then we will work on tightening up once we get to that point. So we're using our 10mm bolts here, putting them in the subframe. These are those 10mm bolts that I said don't discard, just like back here was. The front side of the inner fender, you want to kind of work it in. If you have aftermarket fenders, you want to work it in behind the little crease back here. If you don't have aftermarket fenders yet, it should just pop right on, and then you can install fenders over top of it. But for me, I've already got some aftermarket fenders. Since we got it snugged up to where it's hanging, now we take our 2 Allen head screws. We want to try to line these up while we can, while we got it loose, to kind of help pull it in where it's supposed to be at. Get them started in, and then what we can do is start tightening everything up here. These will be the last 2 things that we tighten up. It's a 10mm socket, and I usually tighten up the middle one. And I'll get it kind of snugged against the subframe, and then I move down to the back one. Making sure everything's still lined up, so we're still good there. Tighten them up. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that's in place and tighten up the front 10mm bolt. They're not difficult to install at all. And we'll just go around, make sure we got them all snug down. All right. So now that we got those where they need to be at, now we're going to tighten up our Allen screws to get those tight where they're supposed to be at. All right, and with that, you have installed your front inner fender from Prestige Off-Road. So let's move on to the rear. What we're about to do right now is we're about to install the rear inner fender from Prestige Off-Road. This rear inner fender is aluminum with a powder coat black. It has their symbol cut out in it. And what I've done is I've actually went in my fender well here and I painted a section red. What this is good for is so whenever I put this inner fender in, the red will then come through and illuminate their symbol in my inner fender. We'll probably have to bend a couple of the corners to get them to fit properly so we can put our screws in for them to hold tight. Don't be alarmed if you have to do that. That's totally normal. But let's go ahead and get started and get this thing in. So to get it in, you want to basically bend it a little bit or put a little pressure to get it in behind the fenders. Not too hard, see? And then you want to pick it up to where everything lines up with the frame. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, at this point in time, we're going to place screws in from the front to the back. So let's do that. Let's get started on that. I'm using self-tapping screws. They say to drill holes and then place bolts through them, bolts and nuts. But I've come to find out this right here is the simpler way, and it still holds because they're self-drilling and they hold like they're a self-tapping screw. Therefore, it holds pressure. And also, if they ever back out, at that point in time, I can put the drill and the bolt through there, or nut to hold it permanently. But I don't think I'll have any problems out of it. So what we want to do is, let me show you. As you can see, there's holes here and here in the inner fender. So we want to get this where we think it needs to be, and then we're going to apply the screws where they need to go. My recommendation is if you can push this in as far as you can go with it, the better, because you want it to be tight against the metal here whenever you're putting the screw in. like so. Part 2. All right, we got those 2 in. As you can see, there's one right here now. Be careful because your gas line is right behind that. So what I've chose to do right now is we're gonna hold off on this one for just a moment until we get everything lined up a little bit better. Like I said, I decided to skip this hole right here because my fuel line is like right behind it, so I've got to figure out a way to move it before I tap this one. But what I did do is I went ahead and I placed a screw in the hole up top, and then I placed a screw down here right beside the sheet metal where the bumper ends, and there's a sheet metal. There's a hole that's right there. You'll place a screw right there. And then whenever you come back around here, so you got your screw here, we'll put one here, screw there, and then a screw there. And then we manipulate the metal where it goes and pulls in behind the lip here by bending this outward. So you bend it outward before you place it in here, and then it's going to apply pressure whenever you start screwing these screws in. This right here will be pressed out, and then what you'll do is you'll simply, right here where these creases are, you will press in, and that will pop into place perfectly. So there is the rear inner fender installation. All right, I'm back, and what I figured out is that I put a piece of pipe foam in behind the inner fender, the actual body inner fender, and then I placed the inner fender on top of the body, and I put a screw. It's a number 8 by 3/8 self-tapping screw into the hole, and it actually went into the foam, so we're good. Moving on. All right, here's the finished front inner fender. Everything that we done through the video for the front inner fender, repeat that process for the passenger side. Everything's going to be identical. So here's the front. Again, repeat everything we done for this side to the opposite side. All right, guys. Here is the finished product for the rear inner fender. And as before in the front, here in the rear, everything we've done on this side, make sure that we do it for the other side as well. So here it is, finished product in the rear.